Well, I'll kick things off with the intros. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and especially to Phong, who's agreed to help us out with this session. If you attended the first one, you'll remember that Simon Ho did it for us, and we were in conversation with Ali Wasim on his project. Simon's on maternity leave right now, so Fong's filling in for this one. We'll likely have a different host for the next one. We just wanted to give a big thanks for doing this. And to welcome also Hudhaifah, and as well as Michael once he connects for us. Hudhaifah is the CEO of Econommi, and Michael's the CTO. And they've created a business that basically focuses on end-to-end lease tokenization. We'll get a bit more into that today, the business model, the problem they're trying to solve, how the company got started, and then a bit of the tech under the hood there. So the way the format of today's session is going to work is Fong's going to lead them in conversation for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then what we'll do is just open it up for breakout and just chatting afterwards. And that'll be a good opportunity to ask any questions you have after listening to the conversation, or to just connect with other devs, or just kind of chat about the tech we've highlighted today. So feel free to put questions in the chat box as we go along, and we'll address them once we get to the end, or feel free to save it until that point in time. But without further ado, we're going to go for about 45 minutes today, by the way. Without further ado, I'll hand things over to Phong to get started.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. It's quite an intro. I don't know if I can follow that up, but I'll try. Quick show of hands, who has heard of Econommi and commodity? just the founders. Okay, so that's good. So that gives me a good idea of how much background information people have here. So I'm going to lead it in a way that it's sort of going to go from like the basics all the way to the crazy stuff you guys are doing in NFTs. So Hudhaifah, why don't you just give us a bit of an explanation on Econommi and what you're trying to do and how it kind of connects to commodity?
Of course. So Econommi and Commodity are two brands, all part of the same company. I personally actually was a commit EP way back earlier. I think I joined with High in 2019 and just started working on some of the projects with commit. And after a while, I was like, hey, Bear, I love these projects, but I want to go do my own thing. And at that time, like an opportunity came up in the car rental space. Really, I went on a trip to Texas and went on a Turo for like a week, and that's peer-to-peer car rentals, right? I rented a car from someone who was renting it out on Turo to Vancouver. I came back to Vancouver and I was like, why do we not have Turo here? And I need to and it was because of regulations, BC regulations. And as you all may be familiar, if you're in BC, the regulations changed in September of 2019. So I called up a friend and I was like, hey, let's do this. Let's try to set up peer-to-peer car rentals in Vancouver before Turo comes in. Maybe we can sell it to Turo. And I shared that idea with Bear as well. He's like, yeah, okay, that's what we're here for. We're entrepreneurial engineers. We want to we want to both support other people in their entrepreneurial journeys as well as eventually pursue our own. So go for it. And that's where Commodity started, in peer-to-peer car rentals. We were doing pretty well. Even started getting in talks with Turo about possibly being acquired, but along came COVID and everything kind of fell apart. The whole world fell apart, and people didn't want to rent out their cars. People didn't want to rent cars. Nobody was moving around. Even Hertz went bankrupt, and we were very nearly going down that route as well. And I just thought, okay, I gotta wind down the business, just sell off the cars, call Bear again, be like, hey, can I go back to software development? I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. And really, it was in that process, I guess, the silver lining that came through, because we were selling off our cars and we were down to a Chevrolet Cruze, a 2014 diesel Chevrolet Cruze. And if any of you are familiar with that car has like a lot of mileage. We took that car to Calgary on one tank and like Calgary and back. And it was just like a favorite of ours. Anyway, that's aside. This guy comes up and he wants to buy it. And his name's Chris, and he got a mid-pandemic job change, and he wants to do some DoorDash as well. He's like, hey, I hear you're a rental company. I'm wondering, can I pay, half of the car up front and then rent it out for the rest of the time? And I was like, yeah, I would have loved to do that maybe a month or two ago, but right now I need the cash. I can't do this. And no deal. But I was thinking about it. I thought about it for a week, and like, with my background in blockchain and cryptocurrencies and just like this whole DeFi decentralized ethos, I've been really wanting to, for the longest time, bring, I think, the crypto ethos into reality and have it affect everyday lives, like truly benefit everyday people. And I was talking to my buddies from university, and these were all Bitcoin people, and I said, you're risk takers. Do you wanna try this out with me? Like, just crowdfund this car and pull together some money. You guys can earn 10%. He'll get the car, and we'll get the cash that we need. And immediately, like 10 of them were down. They're ready. They bought up. They're like, yeah, we'll buy just shares in the car, and we'll earn that 10%. So we drew up some preliminary documents in December of 2020, and that was our first deal. We survived going broke, and I thought, I have like another month or two to I can survive another month or two before going back to software development. And even then, I did start taking interviews with Commit. I think with Certain and another company, and the founders at those companies were like, I think you'd be good as an engineer and stuff, but you still have this fire in you. Like you're not done with your startup yet. So I don't know about you joining us. And I was like, come on, like, I know I'm not done with my startup, but at least, give me something to go back to just in case. But I guess that's not really how entrepreneurship works. You got to just go all in. And it was around that time, actually, Michael was in the company. He started as an operations guy, like cleaning cars, moving cars around. But I kind of just looked at him and I was like, we're going broke. So I can't pay you. Either you go back to construction and music, or you learn to code with me. And Michael just put his heart and soul into it and decided to learn to code. And he has now far surpassed me in all things technical, and has been leading the company's technical development since I'm and so we're here, really. So since then, we kind of took that idea with Chris. Chris was our first customer, but there's far more people in the world similar to Chris. In fact, around 40% of the adult population in North America, we found out later as we were talking to car dealerships and doing our research to see if this was a possibility to expand into like an actual model, an actual thing. And that thing has now become 42 car deals, nearly $500,000 in assets, and growing strong. We've been primarily raising money from friends and family, accredited investors. In fact, some of you in Commit have been big supporters of this as well. So, I gotta shout out and appreciate that support. And we're just finishing up regulatory requirements in order to sell these tokens and take our idea to the greater public, to all Canadians in the country. That's the background and story, Phong. I might have said a bit more than
yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, so I want to touch on some of like the really I think the key points there for our audience that I think well, at least it was super interesting to me on the technology and how we're doing the business model. And Michael, I'm gonna come to you to talk about how we're gonna like how the tech stack and everything plays in part. But I'm gonna try to paint a picture here of what I understand. It's the way I see it is you're printing money. Like it's crazy. Like, do you guys have any idea how crazy this is? It's like, let's say it's not a car. Let's say you have like a water bottle, right? Yeah. And Econommi is selling tokens on that water bottle, and they've convinced people to purchase tokens on the value of that water bottle, right? Like, doesn't that sound crazy? Like, you don't know what's going to happen to a water bottle. It could be like, dead. You could crash next day. You don't know what's going to happen to it. But essentially, you're taking money here. You're putting money in the pocket of Econommi. You're lending that over to the person who wants to buy that water bottle because they find some value in it. And then they're paying interest on top of that. And Econommi is making money on that interest charge, on the transaction, not transaction fee. Correct me if I'm wrong. On the tokens that you personally own yourself. So they take a cut of all that, and they have all this money going back to the people who invest on pure just speculation, but actually putting value into it. Like that to me is crazy. Like there's a white paper that I've been reading. I don't fully understand it. It's amazing. So like when I look at any sort of like startup, it's all about how do you survive? How do you make money? You know, not because I'm, you know, money greedy, but because that's just how you build a business and how you make it work, right? And you guys have something crazy here. It doesn't have to be just a car. It could be anything. And that's why I use the example of a water bottle. So like why don't you tell me, like, you know, did I get everything right here in terms of like the business model? Because I know there's a lot of stuff with your memberships and stuff as well, right? Like that I don't fully understand. And so maybe we can go into that before we go into the tech.
Course. Yeah. So there are two parts to the business in that sense. There's many parts, but you got the base right. The base is that our you know, like our grander vision and mission is to transition the world from a debt-based you know, economy to an asset-backed system. Really trying to put a backstop to all the money printing that that governments are doing. That's, you know, that's an ideological standpoint, but yes, when it comes down to it, you got to make money to survive. You got to make money to prove out the idea, and that is how we do it. So I'll basically just repeat that. Like a $10,000 car, we'll mark that up, you know, 10% over a 2-year lease. It's 10% per annum over a 2-year lease, so it'll be like a $12,000 lease, and then divide that up into $500 monthly payments, and those come back to the investors who buy into the initial car. We take that, we take like a $500 fee on top of that deal from the lessee, and then we earn on the spread between what we charge. So right now we don't keep that much, but in the future, you know, if we charge 10%, we'd pay 8%, something like that, and really create a different asset base to build a financial system on than just fiat. And that's why we rebranded to Econommi from Carmodity, because our vision extends beyond cars, because we want to do far more than cars. We want to do houses, airplanes, boats, you name it. But you know, we got to hunker down on what we're immediately good at and grow from there. And just a note, because this enters a deeper conversation, we don't actually charge interest rates. It can be viewed like interest, but it's not. And it's a key difference in the move away from a debt model, so that we're actually tapping into like the revenue earned on an asset from the rent of it, rather than just money that may not be utilized in the best way. But that is an entirely different conversation that may not be the best for this setting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally interested in how you got that first sale, because from what I understand your white paper, it was completely manual, because you were just kind of testing it. You're like, hey, you know, crypto buddies, you guys believe in this idea, you want to help me out, you know, how did that work? You know, and this might be a question for Michael, because you then had to start creating tokens, issuing those tokens, getting it backed by certain platforms, you know, if that's if it's on there, or if it's just, you know, you have it in your database as well. So there's that solution as well. So how did that first validated sale come, and how did it happen?
I think Michael can take that. And like, we did actually start initially with on the blockchain tokens, but moved away from that for security and cost reasons. But Michael can get into that. Michael.
Yeah, so the first car that we had that we sold, like you said, was the Chevrolet Cruze. It was worth $7,000. So the guy put down half of the car as a deposit, and the remaining 3,500 we split up into 10 tokens. Looking back on it, was like, I don't know why we chose that number, but it was the first one. We did put them on the blockchain initially, and then we realized that any profit we would have made from that lease had just been eaten up by gas fees. So now they just exist in a SQL database, which is arguably more no, it's definitely more secure than the blockchain, at least right now, I think. Because the way our system works for tokenizing is essentially you feed it the car, and the car that you want to tokenize, the legal document for that car, like what are the person's monthly payments, start and end date of a contract, blah, blah, blah. And then I've made a bunch of functions that essentially turn that car into a bunch of tokens, and then how much do those tokens pay, what's their ROI, how long do they last, who owns what tokens.
And in the value of the car, you split it up into different quantities of tokens based on the value of the car and the ROI and a bunch of calculations as well, right? Is that baked into the platform? Like, how do you calculate all that?
It's a lot of really boring financial math, to be honest.
We've chosen the $100 denominator just to kind of like set everything to a standard, and also we figured $100 token, like we want to be actually returning people cents of profits every day, and $100 made the most sense because a 10% on $100 is $10 per annum, and then $10 divided by 365 gets down to 2.7 cents of profit per day. And because we do want to and intend to pay people, you know, on a daily basis, that felt like the right threshold to be at. Anything less than $100 and people start earning like less than a cent per day, and it kind of just standardized things so you can compare tokens side by side to see which ones have a higher, you know, cash payout or better return, and that was the mark that we chose. But from there everything else is, as Michael said, just kind of it's really a division. A lot of things for us starts in an Excel sheet, and then Michael translates that into code, and we go from there. One thing I'll note is in terms of security, we keep a close eye on things. The advantage of the blockchain would be, you know, the constant audit. Like there's always, you can't issue more tokens than there are in that way, and we have to keep a close eye on our database that you know, a random zero doesn't get added anywhere. And really, Michael's kind of designed that system and code as well to audit the database to make sure that more tokens are not in issuance than what we initially intended for there to be. And a particular system that we had to develop was a reservation system, or like, you know, when you buy tickets to the movie theater or even an airlines, there's like a 15 or 20-minute window that you got to buy it in, and that is reserved for. And while you're in that order, like no one else can really purchase that at the same time. So there's some interesting things that we've done around that to make sure that the numbers all stay as expected and together. Yeah,
That's totally awesome. I think I have a question that I think a lot of people here might want to ask, because when I hear something like this, I'm thinking, can I build this myself? Right? Like I build a lot of side projects, and a lot of stuff gets complicated, but a lot of stuff is simple as well. So why don't we get into sort of like the tech stack, the infrastructure, the architecture, and things like that? You know, if that's okay, there's nothing sensitive being shown. But you know, Michael, this might be a question for you. Like, what's the tech stack? How many components do you have? How simple or how complex is it?
So the front end is all done in React.js. I believe that we're still using the private router that commit has.
Kartik
like,
set us up with that.
Yeah, so yeah, we took it from Kartik. It's a beauty. For anyone that doesn't know, basically private routes in React are just pages where if you're not logged in, it kicks you out. And Auth0 thankfully gives you like a lot of functionality to play around with. How many components does the front end have? Like 8 to 10 main pages, and then at least a dozen subcomponents, because there's like pop-ups and shit. The back end is all in Node.js. And there must be like at least 12,000 lines of code in our backend. Like when I checked, when GitHub told me how much work I did last year, it was like a stupid amount of code. It was like at least 10,000 lines.
That's
there
insane.
must be like over 30 different branches. I mean, our index file is like one line from one API. The file is over 1,000 lines long.
How do you ensure like integrity on that, right? There's got to be a lot of like code you're running to make sure nothing's going wrong with the index file, right?
Yeah, test as you go is the main approach. You know, like every time that there's like if I have to make changes to say some of the purchase APIs, then I know that my next round of testing before launching is going to include, you know, buying some tokens, buying some econ tokens, selling tokens, selling econ tokens. Or if I make changes to any of our accounting APIs, like the ones that figure out how much we owe people, and the one that does automatic reinvesting, that one just loves to break for absolutely no reason. Like there was one really funny day of testing where it's like you made one change to the accounting API and now all the cars have like negative 800 tokens. But that's what staging is for, man.
It's good you've split up your environments, because that would be pretty bad in production. Yeah, it's kind of
we only did. I don't think we ever actually did any testing on live. Like by the time I joined, Hudhaifah already had like a staging database set up.
nice. Yeah, cool. Like this actually brings up another question that kind of came to my mind. Like, you know, that's a kind of funny story that you one little thing can really mess up stuff in staging. So like, what sort of like technical lessons have you learned throughout the last how long has Econommi been around for? Like I think like a year since the pandemic, right? Yeah. What were some of the technical challenges or technical lessons you've learned in the last year?
Everything. I mean, I wasn't really coding before this. Like Hudhaifah taught me how to code.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like what I've learned is everything. I don't know how to narrow that down.
Well, is there anything that, let's say, you know, you're spending like you're up until like 3 a.m. bang your head against the wall, and in the morning you solve it and you're like, holy shit, like I can't believe I just solved that. This feels amazing. Has there been a situation like that?
Oh, I see. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, there's the goofs that everyone makes when they're learning how to code, which is like you thought that your code was in this branch of the if else statement when really it was like in the greater loop of an if else statement before it. Or like accessing state before it's defined, and then React just kills itself.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah, or like a Node.js API that responds before you're finished loading something. And how to not use timeout functions. That's some
That's a good one. I've been there.
I think there's some other cool features too, like the whole referral system and the interact payments. Like we've kind of built that ourselves using Zapier integrations, where people can just send interact e-transfers or pick that off of the email and like automatically add it to their accounts. The reservation system. There's a lot of, I think, just like, you know, we just kind of thought about it for a bit, banged our head against the wall. We're like, yeah, we can probably just build this ourselves, and did it. Whereas like, you know, there's referral systems out there that people are offering for like $60 a month that you can integrate into your software. I'm like, we don't want to pay $60 a month. Similar story with like Salesforce, actually, initially before building out, because right now I think the public facing platform is Econommi.io, where you can actually buy the tokens, though we have like a whole dealership system in the back, that, you know, that end-to-end piece, right, where we just kind of plug in the dealership car details, the person's information, make sure we verify all that and approve the deal. That all happens in the back end with other integrations like DocuSign, iComply for you know, identity fraud and things like that, VoPay for pre-authorized debits. So Michael's really been struggling a lot. I think his biggest struggle has been less with our own formulas and stuff, because for the most part I'll design the formulas in Excel, and then he'll implement them in code. But when it comes to learning other people's APIs and figuring out the documentation around that, that's really been the biggest struggle from what I hear.
Yeah, especially for like more either legacy APIs or like super new ones, right? Especially in the crypto space, right? Because like they don't have too much documentation on that, right?
Yep.
So
and there's context too. React context is another piece. Just kind of, I think I'm just kind of naming stuff right now for like if you want to pick up on something or Michael wants to expand on something. Because we were thinking of also using like whether we should use Redux, or if there was like a better, simpler solution. And then again we called commit again, and Bill and then Kartik, and they're like, yeah, just use context. And Michael, you can share your experience about context.
Oh, it just makes everything easier. It's the file where all of the states and all of the logic for your app lives. And it just passes down everything that a component needs to know straight from the source.
Yeah, so sort of like your global state, but built into native React, right? You don't need an external dependency that is Redux, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, looking back on it, trying to build React apps without context would be like trying to make a chicken without a brain. I don't know how I did it. I mean, okay, to be honest, we just had our login API, like the one that, every app has like the login API, the one that gets all the info for that page. Before context, we just had that on every page. So if there are more than 5 people on the website at once, it might crash. Now it's in context. So now we can have like, a few hundred people on at least at once.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Do you have any sort of like active sessions with people who are on right now, or do you just kind of do like a simple transaction with HTTP requests?
Well, it's all HTTPS, and then we use the JSON web token system that Auth0 has, and then so like we have our own internal user management system, and Auth0 has theirs. So generally the safest way we've found to secure everything is to make sure that they match. Like, does who Google say you are and who we say you are, is that the same person? Okay, you can go forward. If it's not, then you get nothing.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Hudhaifah.
And then our most sensitive APIs are all just hidden in our backend with its own like API code, not accessible to the front end at all. Yeah, and these are all taking advice from kind of Michael understanding it for himself, but also taking some advice from Bill because he's an active advisor with us. Yeah.
That's awesome. How do you choose and assess which APIs need to be in the backend and protected based on what you've learned from Bill or what you've learned from your own research?
Which ones give people money? Does it deal with money? Then the backend has to have everything under a tight lock and key.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually something that really shocked me about code, is like, because when you think about it in a logical sense, if I'm going to a store and buying something, the function of me buying something is one function. I pick up the apple, it is now mine, it is no longer there. But when you're dealing with like databases and node functions, that is like 18 different functions that you just called. Because according to like, if just bare bones code logic, you can pick up an apple, but the apple is still there because you didn't tell the database the apple's not there anymore.
So then it's just pretty much state control validating if everything is in check and just, a lot of guardrails in place, right?
So many guardrails. Like anything that you thought was one API is like one API, but it itself is calling like 7.
Yeah.
And then half of those APIs are just like, can we do this? Like, is this logically allowed?
Yeah. So it's no longer just a simple RESTful type of API. You have like, RPC in there, which calls out to a bunch of other middleware and middle tier type services to just get that authenticated. So that validation that you can actually make this call, right?
We have 2 layers.
I don't know. Okay, sorry. When you say RPC, I'm thinking of like Infura and like a blockchain RPC. I don't think we've built one of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that, but it's just a different type of protocol for how to, I guess, make calls back to your backend service. And then you can, it's not like a simple CRUD request where you're like creating, replacing, updating, deleting. It's like you're doing a bunch of stuff behind it. So it's very actively there for certain pros and cons. Like you can easily predict CRUD APIs and manipulate, but for RPCs, you're hidden behind certain, I guess, certain things because people aren't able to guess certain things. It's just a different way to make a request to the backend. But in Ethereum, they all kind of use it, and there are pros and cons to it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So just I guess to clarify there, the format we follow is not entirely RESTful anymore. You're right; it follows a format closer to to RPC. However, everything is still in HTTPS and just API calls. So it's a weird hybrid at the moment. I guess we've not really faced performance issues yet, but it's something to consider as we kind of scale this out.
Have you done any profiling on sort of like scaling? Because before, Michael, you were saying like, with React context, you were able to go from like 5 to 100. Have you profiled to see what's the growth of the company, how many more users you're going to get over time, and how you're going to be able to support all those users actively?
So I think I've kind of thought of it more from a cost perspective. And right now our like AWS fees are around like $180 a month. And what I fully intend to have us move over to commit 0. And but that starts costing around $300 a month from when I last remembered. So as soon as I think we start hitting like that $300 range, that kind of speaks to the scale need that we have. We're probably just gonna redo our architecture, move everything over to commit 0, and go from there. And then that goes with
your monthly costs are $180.
Yes.
What's your MRR?
Oh, revenue?
Yeah.
That's so we did 66,000 from leasing last year.
For the whole year, or MRR?
Yeah, for the year, yeah.
For the year. So that means you have 180 multiplied by 12, which is like, I don't know, 2,000 something, right? Or yes. I can't do math right now. And your revenue is 66,000. And what's your month-over-month growth?
Month-over-month, we've currently paused growth in order to clear regulatory requirements. But as soon as that's clear, we'll be activating our wait list, which I would actually like to invite everybody in into to join in. And the growth rate we experienced before that was 30% month-over-month.
Oh my god, you got a $1 billion company here, man. That's what I see. Yeah. Remember me in 5 years. Yeah, we got some questions in the chats, and I'm also going to kind of open it up to because I think there's enough context there for people to start asking stuff. But what's why don't you talk about the database? Is it managed on the cloud? What platform are you using? Self-hosted, GCP, AWS? Can you talk a little bit about that? Nolan asked this question.
Yes, AWS. Everything's on AWS. We're very everything we have is commit based, so that's the way we're going.
So is it commit 0 based, so you have like Kubernetes cluster with a bunch of like pods going on, or do you have like just a single EC2 instance that's kind of hosting the service?
Not currently single EC2 instance.
Nice. That's always good.
So it's an encrypted I think T3 database on RDS with backups. So one thing we learned that was not a great idea, I think, was the AWS stores snapshots for like 7 days, I think. So you can only go back 7 days. But we have started taking monthly snapshots because that's important for financial accounting and stuff, so that they can verify that all the numbers are as they need to be on a monthly basis, and then end of year as well. So that's something we've been doing. We've been doing monthly snapshots on top of AWS's 7 day backup. We have had to actually do that once though, where there was some corruptions made it to live, to the point that I sent out a message to everybody. I'm like, guys, 3 hours, systems are down, just restoring them back to where they need to be, and then just restored the database, back to last night's state, and then moved it forward a day or two. And Michael's been really clever about that too, in terms of designing how the state moves back and forth in terms of like daily earnings, reinvestments and all that stuff. He's made it so that you can actually run the API from our admin end, and it could just like move the whole database over like 3 days forward or 3 days backward, based on the earnings that we expect people to have on each token. So I really commend him for thinking that through. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. Just a quick question. Your T3 instances, are they like mediums or like what size are they?
Well,
They're the free tier, aren't they?
Free.
our
No,
T
free.
no, the T3 it's a T3 is not free,
Yeah.
but it's a small. It's currently
It's a-
doesn't.
You're
don't have
holding all
that.
this on a small.
Yeah, right now. Yep.
Jesus,
With
that's crazy.
with auto scaling enabled, but we've not had the need for anything more just yet. I do expect over the summer though we will have to upgrade, and that's where moving to commit zero will be the goal.
Yeah, you know what I'm envisioning right now? You know how like Steve Jobs created Apple in a garage with like nothing and just like little pieces of hardware? Does
Yeah.
It's like this. Like I've gone through a lot of my own projects. I've paid for servers and stuff like that, like on a small with something that can grow to whatever scale. Like that to me is crazy. Like you guys have something crazy there, and I'm fully backing this. In fact, I made an account right now. I'm gonna see if I can invest some coins.
Please
And yeah, just want to open it up to the audience right now. Anyone have questions? We can be on the financial side of things, the business model, the tech stack. Anybody want to ask something?
Please. And just a heads up, so like, we introduced the waitlist earlier, but also we have a big event coming up on May 6th that I'd really like to invite everybody to. Bring yourself, bring a date. And if you're on this call, we're happy to provide 50% off on your second ticket for your date. So come over to Alumni Center at UBC. It's a Friday night, so like 7 p.m. onwards, where we really get to launch our phone app, launch announcements on our regulatory updates, and really get everyone together to meet some interesting people. Yeah.
It's going to be a huge buffet.
Huge buffet.
So
Free
even
food
if
is always
we're
good.
boring, the buffet's worth it.
Yep. But yes, please, questions.
I just wanted to say you made that point about saying let's just sort of like have some downtime while you fix that database issue, and like that's something that like I know it's hard to do sometimes, but even as you like get to be a bigger company and you have like SLAs you're trying to stick to and stuff like that, it's like I find like it's a good practice to sometimes just like take that time, right? So often you're like, okay, we got to stick to the SLA, we can have zero downtime, and so we're gonna like absolutely kill ourselves and spend like a ton of dev effort to like fix this while nobody notices. And where sometimes it could be like, let's just have a short downtime, we'll be forgiven for it, but it'll save us like weeks of engineering effort, and it can be totally worth it sometimes. So yeah,
if
probably
Facebook is allowed to go down, we should be too. Everyone should.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess take advantage of that now while you have a smaller user base too, I guess. So there's that.
Thank you. I guess we could talk about the phone app too, by the way. Please bring on the questions, and Michael can also just continue chatting about the phone app and how different React Native is compared to React actually.
Sorry, am I supposed to say something now?
Yeah, why don't we jump into the phone app? Like, how's the difference between React Native and just normal React?
React Native is the exact same as React, but worse in every way. Literally every way you can imagine, it's just worse. Like the view for your screens doesn't start where the phone, how to put this? Because Apple and Google, they don't legally allow you to like put content at like the very, very top of the screen, because that's where your what is it? Your clock and your battery icon go, right? So you'd figure React would just know that. No, when you try to put text into a component, everything starts the fucking top left behind the user's clock. Use effects because in React, use effects run on page load, right? So when you're clicking around between different pages on a web app, You know, if you click a page, it loads the page, the use effect runs, you are now in the page. Good job. Whereas in React Native, that concept doesn't exist because every page is loaded all the time.
Especially using scroll view.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, no, past the scroll view, it's like every tab, every screen on a phone app is loaded all the time. So use effects just don't work anymore.
How do you refresh context then?
Just close the app.
No, but you've designed the timeout function for that, right? You've designed a refresh ability there.
Oh, that refresh. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, because from the app's point of view, okay, what we call refreshing is just setting the context, everything in context, just setting it to empty. Like if someone logs out, we have a function that just clears out context. But from the app's point of view, you haven't done anything. Like from the actual internal app's point of view, you have to close the app and launch it again to like clear cache.
Yeah, it gets pretty interesting too, because even with some rules on like you know, the mobile OS, if you like put the app in suspend and you put it back, it does some weird thing with the states as well, right? Like I'm not a mobile engineer, but I think I've seen some of that issue happening with some of my experiments. Mobile development to me is just this weird mystery that I don't fully understand.
Even I think you struggled a lot with WebView, right, Michael?
Oh my God. Like imagine iframes, but worse. Like that's what WebView is. I mean, okay, first of all, Expo's own WebView component just doesn't work. And it's nowhere in their documentation that it doesn't work, but you just have to go find the tweet from one of the Expo engineers where he's like, yeah, we stopped supporting this, don't use it. Same with Expo Blur. Like there's just a lot of components that they just stop supporting and they never put it anywhere on their documentation outside of Twitter. Then you have to go use React Native components in an Expo app, and then they want different versions of React Native. So then if you use the wrong build function, it will fail 100% of the time. It's nonsense. I love it, but it's nonsense.
Yeah, and then just kind of like, I think everyone's been through these situations before where you're just developing and you're banging your head against the wall, and then you finally figure it out and you're like, this documentation could have been better. They could have just written one line, you know, like where's the change log? But you know, we're at time. You know, we had a thing to go to breakout rooms, but you know, we're here right now. I don't think we can do that anymore, right, Daniel?
I could still yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we're small enough. We could stay in this room if you want. We can keep chatting, keep this going. Or if you guys have to jump, you know, you can feel free to log off. I was trying to think of how we could keep this conversation going afterwards. I know many of us are already on Slack. If you want, I can pull us into a group. We can just keep the conversation going there.
Yeah.
And that way, you know, we're not missing on anything. What I can do is also download some of this chat and pull out kind of the key pieces, and then share any resources that Hud and Michael you have with the group afterwards, along with the recording as well, once I get a chance to cut it, if anybody wants to go back and rewatch that. But if that sounds good to you, that's how we can do it. If you want to stick around a bit longer, I'm happy to keep this Zoom call open. I just want to be respectful of your time.
Of course. Yeah, no, we're here for a bit, and I'm actually just copying our Discord link over into the chat as well. So that's where we kind of engage with the community on a regular basis. I shared the wait list up there. It would be awesome to have you guys join that. Come out to the event, you know, just enjoy a meal and learn more, and just be in touch with us. You know, commits really economy started at commit, and it would be awesome to have more and more commit involvement in the future as well. We learn a lot from the community, and hope to give back as well. And I'm just sharing the Discord chat right here. If you guys are on Discord, feel free to jump on. Yeah.
Happy joining. You got something awesome going here, and I would like to follow along on the journey. Do you have any sort of social media accounts? I believe I saw your link tree, and you're on pretty much every platform. But maybe you can plug the link tree as well for anyone that wants to follow the journey.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But aside from that, I just want to thank you, Hud, Michael, for answering my questions. This has been very insightful in your company, the business model, the tech stack. I will definitely be following up, you know, offline afterwards, and I'll see if I can join the event. But for me, I gotta jump off, so hopefully, you know, people can stick around, ask some questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Bill.